Good afternoon, parents. This is Mr. Jameson again. We're doing another live recording from room 34 here at Brookdale Elementary School. This week's topic will be comparing fractions, okay? Comparing fractions. So, when we're comparing fractions, I have taught the students that, hey, we must follow the rules. In order to play a game, you have to know the rules to the game. So, in the games of comparing fractions, first I'm going to show you the rules. So, please walk with me. All right, rule number one, it states, if the numerators are the same, compare the denominators. The denominator with the lesser number is the greatest. So, as we go back to the board here we have number one and number two. These follow rule number one, which your numerators are the same. So if our numerators are the same, we need to compare the denominators. And whichever denominator is the lesser, that is the greatest fraction, okay? So here, when we're comparing numbers, we're comparing them by greater than, less than, or equal to, okay? Also, please pause the video when needed. If there's any need for instruction or you need any type of guidance, please make sure that you stop the video and pause when necessary. Okay? So, going back to rule one, 3/5 compared to 3/8. We know that it follows rule one, and we know that the numerators are the same. So, if the numerators are the same, we need to look for the lesser denominator. The lesser denominator here is 5, which makes it 3/5 is greater than 3/8. Okay? Number two, we still again follow rule number one. Rule number one, if the numerators are the same, compare the denominators. The lesser denominator is the greatest. So we're comparing 4/7 to 4/5. We know that 5 is the lesser denominator of 7, which makes 4/7 less than 4/5. Okay? So now, those were fractions that dealt with rule one. Those were examples that you could look at. All right, so now for numbers 3 and 4, we're going to look at rule number 2. All right, and rule number 2 states, if the denominators are the same, compare the numerators. Okay, so if the denominators are the same, compare the numerators. Here, in both problems number 3 and number 4, the denominators are the same, okay? They are the same, so meaning that we need to compare the numerators. So, 4/8 compared to 2/8. I know that 4 is greater than 2, which makes 4/8 greater than 2/8. If I look at number 4, I see that we both have the denominators of 10, which means we need to compare our numerators. 3/10 is less than 8/10, which therefore we will use our less than sign. Now, pairs, if you need to stop the video after rule 1 and rule 2, that is great. Rule number 3 for number 5 is going to be very tricky. There's going to be some things that you're going to have to pay close attention to. Believe me, when we're talking about rule number 3, you're going to have to stop and pause the video, okay? All right, so rule number 3. Rule number 3 states, if the numerator or denominators aren't the same, we must find the common denominator, okay? We must find the common denominator. If we're finding the common denominator, people, that means that both of our denominators have to be the same. What we do to make sure that our common denominators are the same, we have to find what we call our least common multiple, or something that you may have heard of before called your LCM, okay? Least common multiple. So for number 5, we are comparing 3/8 to 4/12. We always check our rules to see if it applies. Rule number 1, if the numerators are the same, Clearly, 3 and 4 aren't the same. Rule number 2 states if the denominators are the same. Clearly, the denominators are not the same. So now we have rule number 3. Rule number 3 states we need to find our common denominators. How do we find our common denominators? By finding our least common multiple. So here we have 3/8, 4/12. So I need to find the least common multiple between 8 and 12. So I always teach my students to list the first 5 multiples of each denominator. So for number 8, our first 5 multiples are 8, 16, 24, 32, and 40. Okay? Our first 5 multiples are of 12, 12, 24, 36, 48, and 50. Okay? Now, I need to find the least common multiple. So that means I need to find the smallest number that is common between 8 and 12. As I check each list, the only number that is in common is 24. It is 24. Okay? So my common denominator, everyone, will be 24. So I teach my students here that, hey, we need to now rewrite our comparison statement, okay? So now, I have to ask myself, well, how did 8 get to 24? If you know your timetables, I always tell them to make reference to the timetables. 8 times 3 gives us 24. The students also know that what you do to the bottom, you must also do to the top. So 3 times 3 would give us 9. 12. I asked myself, how does 12 get to 24? Times 2. What I do to the bottom, I must also do to the top. 4 times 2 would give me 8. Now I can compare because both of my denominators are now the same. If I were to compare them, it would state that 3/8, which is equivalent to 9/24, is greater than 4/12, which is equivalent to 8/24. Parents, I hope this helps you with comparing fractions. If there are any questions, comments, or concerns, please don't feel free to email me, send a message, tell the students, send it with the students to let me know so that, hey, we can best benefit the child. And again, I'm out. Sayonara. Deuces. I'm going to holler at y'all later.